actually constructing the necklace, I'm going to start cutting segments of wire, because this necklace is basically made up of a series of bead units linked by jump rings. And to make the bead units, I need some sets of wire. So I'm going to free an end here. There we go. So that, just a piece of wire. I'm trying to use a dark colored background, so hopefully you can see some contrast. And then I'm actually going to measure, and I'm using 1-inch segments of wire. Now you may opt to use a little bit longer segments if you have bigger beads or prefer bigger loops. But for me, I found an 1-inch long segment works best. So I'm just going to measure that out and cut it. And there is one segment of wire. Now it doesn't have to be a perfect 1-inch long piece of wire. You just want these uniform. And to do that, I'm just going to take the segment I just cut, hold it up to the wire, and use that as a guide to cut my next segment. You're going to repeat this for every single segment you will need to complete your necklace. You can do all at once if you know how many you're going to need. However, for me, I get a little ADD sometimes, so I like to do it in smaller groups. So I'm probably going to cut about 6, make some bead units, attach them to the necklace, and then go back and cut more, which is why I want a measuring device so I can make sure they're uniform. That one's a little bit. If you do want to cut the segments in series, like I'm going to do a group of 6, make sure you use and you cut an even amount. You know, a 2, a 4, a 6. Don't cut an odd number, because that's going to throw off your symmetry in your necklace. See, do I have? Right, I need one more. That one's going to need snipped a little shorter. All right. So I now have 6 segments of wire. I'm going to actually start making a bead unit now. And to do that, I'm just going to take one of the segments. If you don't have a good grip with your thumb and forefinger, like I'm using, you can use your pliers to hold the wire. Going to take my round nose pliers, grab the end of that wire. And I'm going to make my loops quite small, so I'm going to be keeping the wire close to the tips of my round nose pliers. Grip that edge and just rotate the wire. And now there's a loop. See if that works a little better. You're basically making like an eye pin. And you want to make sure the end of your wire is touching the rest of it. That way your ring can't slide out and fall apart. So there. Now in order to make this more like an eye ring, I'm going to bend this loop a little bit. To do that, I'm going to use my round nose and just bend it a little bit. And that way the loop is more of a straight on. See that? That's what you want, like an eye pin. Now I'm going to put a bead on the unit. So I'm going to take the loop I just made, grip it with my pliers or my fingers, and I'm going to pick up one of my beads. I can use my fingers or I can use another plier and just slide it over the wire into place. Now, you may have a little bit of difficulty if you have small holes in your beads. These holes just happen to be just big enough for the wire. These beads are a little tight, so they're just barely fitting over the wire. See? Now, to finish this off, I'm just going to work in reverse of what I just did to make the first loop. So I'm going to use pliers to hold the loop because that's going to make my life a little bit easier. Get that bead down. See if that helps. Then I'm going to bend it at a 45-degree angle. I like to actually make my loops opposite of one another. So I'm going to actually bend the 45-degree angle in the direction that the end of the loop is on the other side. And you want to leave about a 1/4 inch of wire on the end in order to form your loop. So I'm just going to take it, bend like that. Then I'm going to grip the end of the loop with my round nose pliers and rotate it in like that. Now, sometimes you may find that your loops aren't perfectly straight. This actually looks pretty good. But if that happens and it's a little twisted, you can just take a second pair of pliers, if you have them, and just twist it into the right position. And this is one bead unit. I'm going to make another one so you can see that again. So I'm going to take my wire, take a grip it with either my fingers or pliers, take the edge with my round nose and twist it into a loop. I want my loop to be straightened, so I'm going to grab onto the loop, take my pliers, and bend the rest of the wire back a little bit. So now I have what's essentially an eye pin. Slide a bead on the end. That one went on a lot easier. I am going to form a loop on the other side. Bend the wire at a 45-degree angle, leaving about a 1/4 inch tail. Grip the end of the tail and rotate your loop in. And if the loops aren't as straight as you would like them, use a second pair of pliers to bend them into the proper position. Now we have 2 bead units. And I'm going to make the rest of these bead units and then come back and show you how to link them together. Okay, I'm switching to a voiceover for the moment because the sound was really bad in the video for part of it. As you can see, I've completed 4 more bead units, and it figures it went a lot smoother when I wasn't demonstrating on camera. And so now we're going to start linking them together, and to do that we're going to start by linking them to the pendant because that will be our center point, and then we will build outwards from there. As I noted before, I'm going to have to use a little bit bigger jump ring for the pendant because it has that ginormous loop. And this will work for demonstrations because it will be a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing to open them up. You want to make sure you twist to open them, don't pull them, because that will destroy the shape of the ring. If you have 2 pliers, this will help a lot. And you're just going to twist them in 2 opposite directions, like so. Now you have an open spiral that you will use to hook on your pendant and 2 bead units. So now I'm just going to take my pendant and drop it onto that jump ring like so. And then I will be able to add 2 of my bead units and close it up. Now we'll have a bit of a silent film while we wait to catch up to the rest of the video where the sound wasn't horrible. Right, so you're going to just work in reverse of how you opened it. And you're just going to twist it back into place. Now you also want to go back and forth just a couple of times to form a slightly stronger bond, because you don't want the jump ring coming open again. And usually what will happen is you'll hear a click. Now I have my pendant and the start of my chain. It is important to note that depending on what direction your loop is facing for your pendant, you may need a second jump ring in order to make it lie flat against your décolleté area. But this one, it was in a good position, so I just needed the one. But on the other one I had on earlier, I had to do 2 jump rings. But I could also use the smaller ones for that because it didn't have this big, chunky loop on the pendant. Right, so now I'm going to start building the chain. And to do that, it's just the same principle, only I'm going to use one of the small rings this time. Same way, just open up the jump ring. These are where it's really, really good to have 2 pliers because I can't grab anything with my fingers this small. And I'm just going to twist that open. Hook it on one of the free loops of one of the bead units. Then I'm going to get another bead unit and put it on the same jump ring. And I like to make my loops face opposite for a little more visual interest. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Now they're both on there. I'm going to close it up in the same manner. Twist back and go back and forth a couple times just to get that together. Now one side has 2 bead units, one side has 1. To keep up with the symmetry and make it easier to keep track of where I'm at, I'm going to add the next one to this side. That way, after I add the next one, it will be 2 and 2 instead of 1 and 3. Now it's going to be easier, as I get closer to the length I want, it will be easier to know when I can stop and when I need to keep going because both sides will be even, and then all I have to do is hold it up to my neck. So same thing, get one of the jump rings, open her up by twisting it. Click it on the shorter chain and add another bead unit along with it. 2 and 2. And if it's not perfectly uniform, that's okay. These are handcrafted. It's not going to be absolutely perfect. And you've got the start of your necklace now. I'm going to go and add the rest of my bead units together in the same manner. Building this necklace takes about 2 hours. If you're really good, it'll take less. Now come back and show you how to add the clasp when I have the rest